there's so many people out there saying, oh, you have so much more freedom when you rent a property and you have this and you have that. I don't want to own a property. And I'm just biting my lip kind of going, you're an idiot. The way to look at this is if you buy that one bed apartment, right, you buy it for 220,000 and you put down 22 grand of a deposit on it. So let's call it you have a 200 grand mortgage, right? And you live in it for a year and then you go off and buy another property. So let's call it you have a mortgage of 190,000. You then rent that property out. You never have to put any money towards that property again because the tenant is going to pay for the mortgage. So you tell me another investment that you just need to put down 22 grand and that you'll have more than likely an investment worth 300,000 by the time you're 60.
Ray Cooke, leading authority in the property market.
For someone looking to get a mortgage, what would be the things the bank is looking for?
They're looking for what that basically means is you don't go into a bank on its own, you go in and use it. 3 different ways you can buy a property. E or SI came out and said there's going to be an extra 1 million people living in the country by 2030, so where are they going to live?
Before we start this episode, I would like to thank each and every one of you for listening to these episodes. If you could take a couple of more seconds out your time, share, like, subscribe, follow on whatever platform you're listening on. It would honestly mean so much to us and would help us grow the podcast. Now let's get straight to the episode. Thanks so much for coming on, Ray.
Thanks for having me.
So you are in the property business?
I'm indeed, yeah.
So what is Ray Cooke's? Ray Cooke Lettings or is it Ray Cooke's?
Yeah,
is it Cooke's or?
Cooke, yeah.
Cooke,
so it's
right,
a Cooke,
okay,
yeah. My wife would say Cook just to annoy me now, but no, so I would have set the business up in 2005. Back then, you're in the Celtic Tiger, so you just would have been selling houses, and then we've developed the business into, obviously, Ray Cooke Lettings as well. We'd be well known. We've property management, we do bank valuations, we've commercial, as you can see the sign next door to you here as well.
Oh yeah, actually, that now.
So like I said, we've also another financial services business that does mortgages and life assurance and pensions and stuff like that. And then we have another company as well, which is called Eldrin as well, which is a buyer's agent that helps people go out and buy properties, and a relocation agent as well, helps them find rental properties there as well. So we're busy.
And is that like all these companies now, is that all just you?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ,
wife,
yeah, like that's a lot. Like I don't never know how I cope myself. Like never mind with what you do.
Yeah, it's nuts, like so it is. Like the hardest part I was just saying to you off camera is managing people nowadays, because we've nearly 60 staff. So like
between all the companies, or just
between all the companies, yeah. So we've nearly 60 staff. Like so, managing people, I suppose, is the hardest part of managing businesses. And you can't be in the like we've 8 locations around Dublin. So obviously you can't be in all 8 locations at the same time. So that's the hardest part of managing the business, is having good people to manage those people as well, like so, which luckily I do, thank God.
Yeah. And so how did you, like, say I think like that's what everyone wants to do now, isn't it? Get into property. How did you get into that? Like what?
And it's mad as well, because like imagine if you said to your mum and dad, like back in 2012, I want to get into property, to give you a slap across the head that you're not going near property, get in and get a college degree. But
I'm getting told that now.
Yeah. But no, I got into it. I knew I wanted to become an estate agent, because I remember when I was growing up, I'm from Racool, so, and I remember seeing the local estate agent there, and he was always driving a Merc, and he always had a big house, and I was kind of going, geez, that's a job to be in. And then after that, I have 2 uncles out in Wicklow that became estate agents as well, and again, they had a great lifestyle and everything like this, so I was kind of going, well, that's the way it is. I wasn't great in school, and I always said, look, I'm good at talking to people, I'm good at sales, I was always good at that side of things. So, but back when, probably 2000, I said, right, I want to get into it. And I was only 19 at that time. So I said, right, I'm going to go off to Australia for a year, piss around for a year, and then I'll come back and settle down. Because I was very sensible when I was younger. And when I was 22, I got into it. And when I was 24, I set up my business and opened my first office 2 weeks after turning 25. And just built it from there, yeah. So I loved it. I love dealing with people, and it's a mental job, like, because you're dealing with people, and they're buying houses, selling houses. Like there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of emotions going on. But it's always 100 miles an hour, and it's brilliant. I love it, like So it's either you love it or you hate it, like So, but I love it, thankfully, like So.
Yeah, and that's like the way that you just said, like, oh right, I'll just set up a business and just go from there.
It wasn't as simple as that. I was working with somebody, and the pay wasn't great, and I was probably making them 220,000, 250,000, and I was probably only on around 40,000 or 45,000. So, and I was very loyal, but then when I asked them for a pay rise, they said no, and I was kind of going, okay, I'll set up my own office, you know, and I set up my own office in Clondalkin, and things were going great, you know. That was 2005, end of 2005, 2006 was great, and then 2007 it all kind of went tits up with the Celtic Tiger crash. So, and I was like, when I was 23, I bought my first house, and I bought another couple of houses after that, and, you know, set up the business, and, you know, I had to remortgage one of the houses to set up the business, and, you know, and then all of a sudden everything collapsed, you know. So I was, you know, geez, I don't know how much debt I was in, but, you know, there was definitely a top in the millions, maybe, like, you know, a million and a plus. Anyway, so like I said, so I had to just, I didn't have a choice, you know. But look, back then I was single and no kids and whatever else. So the attitude was always, I can always go back to my mum and dad's, you know, if I have to, or if they wouldn't have me, I'd go off to America and work behind the bar or something to do something. But look, luckily enough, we got through those 3 or 4 years, and like, I opened my second office in 2009 in Tala, and that was only a small office. Like, it was in front of a solicitor's office, a small, tiny little space. And I remember another estate agent ringing me up and laughing down the phone at me because 3 or 4 other agents had closed down in Tala that year. And that kind of spurred me up, like, to kind of go, well, fuck you, I'm going to show you, like, you know. And in fairness, we built it. So in Clondalkin and Tala, we built it, and we were starting to build a name, and the yellow sign was starting to get kind of, people started to recognise it. And it was a couple more years then we set up, in 2009 I set up the mortgage business, the financial services business, and then in 2015 opened up Terranure. I think it was 2017 we opened up the Finglas office. 19 we opened up Racool office. We opened up another office in Greenogue Business Park as well, as a 3,500 square foot office over there where our property management division and our financial services division are. And then we opened up, I think it was Moby Road in Glasnevin, and then we opened up Blanchardstown as well. So we've 8 locations now in 19 years, or 20 years next year now, celebrated now, like, you know, so.
Yeah.
So it was a busy, especially the last 8 years was mad busy with offices. Offices were nearly opening every 2 years or 3 years, like, you know. So it was busy, but it exploded because I suppose we were doing our jobs and people started recommending us, and we started growing into more areas, and we were selling a lot of properties in areas. So we started opening offices in those areas, or we saw other areas that we could be selling more in. And it's just, obviously my team started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just mental, you know, it's just mental. So it was great. So like I said, it's been a mad 19 years, yeah. So ups and downs, obviously, but.
Yeah, I felt like you said everything so quick. I'm like,
yeah.
and so much at the, so you went from, I'm like, whoa.
Clondalkin to Tala to Terranure. So all 3 offices, and then we said we'll go over to the north side, where no one knew us on the north side. No one heard of Ray Cooke or Ray Cooke.
Yeah, I'd be from the north side.
Yeah, so no one heard of us at that stage, and there was no one in Finglas. And we always wondered, why is there no one in Finglas? Like, you know, no estate agent in Finglas. So we opened up in Finglas, and Finglas has been great to us. It's brilliant to us, like, you know. And it's hard work now. It took us. We weren't earning any money in the first 2 years or 3 years because, like any business, you don't make any money first couple. And then obviously we went back and opened up in Racool because I'm from Racool, and we saw an opening there as well, you know. And we went back over to Moby Road, Glasnevin, opened another office as well. So it was just it was mental, like. And then Blanchardstown as well. So Dublin 15 is like a city on its own. It's huge, like, you know. So
yes, so you said you bought a couple of properties at the start, and was that just, obviously, what were you, when you bought these, was that just to basically, I'm going to rent these out, or what was the plan with them?
The first house I bought at the time was, I think it was 2002, and sale agreed on it, and it was a new build. So by the time I actually got the keys, it was 2003. But I had the choice, because the property prices were going nuts back then, something similar to what they're going now. And I had the choice of, in Dublin, buying a 1-bed apartment, or I could buy a 4-bed house just outside of Naas for, I think it was 225 or 235,000, like, that's how much it was. So I decided to buy the 4-bed house, and not realise, I thought my friends would be all coming down to see me, and, you know what I mean, and like, they were going the other way into town, not that way, like, you know. And it was grand. Like I lived there for a couple of years, and do you know what? Property prices went up so much. I was able to remortgage that house to set up my business a couple of years later. I was able to obviously buy. I bought another investment property, and then I bought another property. I was in a relationship. I broke up with her, and then I was like, I don't want to be down, and I want to be coming up to Dublin because I got to be socialised in Dublin. So I ended up buying another property then up in Dublin, right in the height of it in 2007. Like, you know, so like we believe it. You know the way if you're going for a mortgage, you get 4 times your salary now.
Yeah.
Back then, I got 9 times my salary. So you can imagine what the mortgage repayments were on that, like, you know. So and I was only 9 months in business as well, like, you know. But that shows you how mental it was. So I bought 3 properties in the space of a couple of years there, and then obviously had remortgaged the house to set up my business. I was in debt in the business, like any business. You're a business owner, so you know yourself. You have to put money in, and you're not necessarily making that much money the first kind of couple of years. So any money you kind of got, and there wasn't any social media back in really 2005. Like most people didn't even have a computer at home, never mind a smartphone.
It was all pass and trade.
It was word of mouth. It was your for sale sign. It was you do a leaflet drop, you know. People, and you might get a phone call out or whatever, and you just had to build it one sign at a time. And luckily enough, I was kind of well known in the Clondalkin area. I had worked in that area for 2 or 3 years, and people knew me. And just one, you know, I'd sell a house for you, and I'd have to do a good job for you, and then you tell your sister and your brother and your auntie and your dog and your cat about me, and it led from there and there and there, and as simple as that, like, and that's how I built the business.
I feel like you say it like as if it's so, obviously to other people listening, even myself now, like, bought this property, bought that property.
It was hard.
Like,
it was sacrifice. Like, in my like I was 17 doing my leaving cert, like, you know, so I was a young 17-year-old doing my leaving, and then I went into hotel property management, like, you know, and a trainee hotel manager. So I ended up going down to a place called Park Nasilla, which is outside of Sneem, or do you ever hear Kenmare down in Kerry? It's on the ring of Kerry anyway. Like, it's as far away as you can get, like. And I was only 17, like, you know, and I was nearly in charge of lads that were 40 and 30, like, because I was a trainee hotel manager, and you know, I learned a lot, like, you know, and I probably was 10-15 years older than I was in my head, you know what I mean, and I was very mature, and I kind of knew what I wanted. And then I then decided that I wanted to get into the estate agency game, but no one would hire a 19-year-old to sell houses, you know. So, and even though I probably looked 25 when I was 19, but like I said, no one would hire you. So I said, right, I had a plan. I'd go to Australia, came back from Australia, I worked my arse off when I came back, and I saved a deposit, and
then it was probably easier to get
mortgages. Yeah, you got 92% mortgage. I remember getting a 92% mortgage at the time, and I did just save money. I just saved money. Like, I lived like a hobbit, you know, and that's what people, they don't do now. Like, you know, they still want to go out and have their lunches out, or they still bring their lunch in, or sorry, they still go out for lunch every day. They're still getting their teas and coffees out or whatever like that. I lived like a monk because I didn't have the money, and I wasn't on great wages. Like, I was only on probably 35,000-40,000, but I was saving.
That's the normal way, like, well, you'll get people though now that are on them wages, but they have designer this, designer that,
but they spend their money, and they're going on how many holidays a year, and it's grand for me to say that, but the way I looked at it is I wanted to get my first property because I was going to live in it. I was going to even rent out rooms, I was going to do whatever. I still own that property now, and it's rented out for the last I don't know how many years, you know, and there's no mortgage basically near enough on it, you know what I mean? I have $100,000 mortgage on it, like, you know what I mean? Like, so left, it's probably now worth 450,000-500,000, you know what I mean? Because I made a sacrifice when I was 22 when I came back, and when I came back from Australia, like, you know, I came back with no money. I came back, I think, own around 6,000 or 7,000 to my mates and my family, because every time I was ringing them up, like, it was 500 quid, like, and I'll pay you back when I come back, like, you know. And I came back, and I just got the head down, and obviously going into a new career as well. And I was lucky enough, the market was starting to take off then, and I was earning commission and whatever else. But I was only on, like I said, 35,000, maybe max 40, and over the next 2 years. But I was saving 10, 12, 13,000. You know, and it was a sacrifice, like, you know, and it was a sacrifice, but I was trying to save £1,000 a month, you know, to get that deposit. And then I got the deposit, and I was able to, you know, and I was able to go off and buy the first property, and that first property has led to everything else. And it's just, you have to make that sacrifice. It's a pain in the arse, but you don't need to, like, so many people I see, and I see even the people that are working for me, you know, they have a car loan, and they're earning good money and they're living at home with their mum and dad, but yet they're nearly on to me on the 20th. We get paid on the 25th of every month, and they're on to me at the 20th. Any chance of an advance? You know what I mean? You're kind of going, you live like, what are you spending your money on, like, But they're going in, and every time you see them, they've new runners and they've new white t-shirt and they've new jeans and they've and they have to just stop doing that. Like, if you want to, I suppose the way I had to look at it, I didn't want to be working in my 40s and 50s like I am that I did in my 20s and 30s, and they don't want to do that now. I think they're looking for the easy route. I think a lot of people are, and I know that might be controversial, but I feel that people are looking at Instagram and I think they can kind of get rich quickly on this gimmick or do this and that. Like, I was working 60, 80 hour weeks. I was working my arse off, like, so and I think to be successful you have to work those hours, like,
Yeah, that's as you said, what you just said there, like, work hard now so then you can retire sooner when you're actually you're probably best off retire, like, you'll be older, where now you have all the energy and you're able to work them hours.
I've young kids now, like I've well, not young, they're 8 and 10, but like I said, they're I want to spend time with them. You know what I mean? Like, so, I don't want to be working till 8 o'clock at night now, or have to work. And in our industry, you're working evenings. Like, if you want to go out and view a house, you're not around at 1 o'clock in the day because you're busy. You'll view it at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, or you'll view it on a Saturday, So when you're an estate agent, you have to work those hours to be successful. And I had no bother working those hours, because every time I was looking at it was just about doing deals and getting deals across the line and whatever else. And I always had the bigger picture there, that I wanted to, obviously pay down my debt. Obviously, once I set up the business, obviously, and I was in that debt in the early when the Celtic Tiger crash, obviously it was a lot of debt. So the main objective over the next 5 or 6 years is to pay off that debt, because the bank had you by the neck then, like, you know what I mean? So I had to pay off that debt. So I had to work my arse off, like, So, and it was tough back then as well. There was no money to be earned, So, but you have to, if you want to get anything in life, if you want to set up your business, if you want to do anything, you have to sacrifice, you have to put in the hours. And a lot of time you're not making any money out of it, like, so, but you have to sacrifice and you have to keep going and going and going, so.
So now, obviously, with all your businesses that you have, do you have loads of property that you own now, your own property, and rent it out then?
Yeah.
How many properties would you have now yourself?
I wouldn't say now, but like I said, we have a mixture of, there's 3 different ways you can buy a property, right? You can buy a property in your own name, okay? You can buy a property through a company, and then you can buy properties through your pension. So we have in 3 different ways. So we myself and my wife will have properties across residential and commercial properties. So, and we'd have them rented out there as well, like, So we'd have a decent portfolio.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, so like, no, again, like, yeah, we've done very well for ourselves. But like, there's a lot of people on that, and we like I said, we'd own all those properties and we would own them outright, or we would have very, very little small mortgages on them, and that's what we concentrate on. Where other people, you see on Instagram now is like, oh, get loans and get mortgages out on them and leverage yourself up to use that money to buy another property. But what they don't tell you is you have to pay back those loans, and interest rates went up like in the last 2 years. So your repayments could have went from 1,500 to $2,000 in the space of a couple of months, So like I said, that's an extra $6,000 a year to pay. So like I said, people don't talk to you about these type of things, like, So like I think you had Paul Merriman on, I was watching that podcast, and Paul is always great. And he was even saying people don't teach you about the interest rates going up. Like, interest rates going up by 1 or 2% could add $100,000 to your mortgage over the 20-year mortgage, like, So I don't have those exact figures, but it's something like that, So if you think about that $100,000, so by the interest rate just going up, and people don't obviously talk to you about these things, like, but what we did, like I said, we concentrated on paying down debt and having, like, we don't. We owe feck all money to the banks, put it that way, like, so if anything. So the banks don't have anything over. So it's kind of...
it's a good thing if there's any like type of recession or anything like that to happen. You're covered, like.
Someone had said it's like fuck you money, because, no one can go near you, like, you know, so the bank aren't going to call in a loan because they don't have a loan to call in. So, but look, and we're happy enough, yeah. So, and we have good businesses, and like the thing that we built in, and any business owner, we have made sure there was a lot of different streams of income coming in as well from our businesses as well. So we don't just have residential sales coming in, we have lettings, we have property management, we do fit outs, we do pension properties, we do bank valuations, we do commercial, you know, like I said to you, and then in our financial services business, we've 3 or 4 different streams of income coming in there, and then on the other company there, we've 2 or 3 streams of income coming in there. So all in all, we've around 10 or 12 streams of income coming in. So if 1 or 2 of them in a recession go, you have 8 or 9 other streams to kind of keep you going. And that's what I've built up, and that's what I've concentrated on in the last 10 years, is building those different streams of income.
So your advice for anyone looking to basically say get into property, or say not just to have one, for example, would be just save, buy, rent that, keep saving. You don't, so you wouldn't say get a mortgage or get investments or anything like that?
No, I wouldn't. Like, you see a lot of these people now, and you see them on social media and come in on like investment clubs or this or that, and you know, all you need to put in is $5,000, and there's 20 other people putting $5,000 in, and that's a load of shit. Like, you know, that's rubbish. You're better off going off and buying your own property, saving your own deposit, whether it be you and your own, or you and your partner, or whatever it is, or you and your sister or brother, and buying the first property, living in the first property. And then whether that's a 1-bed apartment, just get on the ladder, you know. And then once you get on that ladder, hold on to that property. So then save for the 2-bed apartment or the 3-bed house then, and then move into the 3-bed house. And what you don't understand as well is when you buy that property and you're paying a mortgage, the mortgage is going down. So you would have had to put 10% on that. So all of a sudden you're saving into that property. Also, the value of that property is more than likely going up as well. So all of a sudden you have a good bit of equity in that property. So you could remortgage that property, buy another property, or with your savings buy another property, and then hold on to the first one and rent it out. And that's what I'd always advise people. Don't go off and buy the first property and not live in it. Maybe go in and buy the first one and live in it for a couple of years, and then keep saving, and then go off and buy another property, you know. So or rent out a room, or do whatever you can to have income kind of coming in. And that's how I did it. I'm not saying that's how you should do it, but that's how I did it. And every property I kind of bought in it, well, with the exception of one, I lived in, you know. So, and then went from there, like, and rented it out from there, and built a portfolio from there.
Yeah, so just get like a mortgage with a bank kind of thing. Yeah.
Go off, like, you save 10% and put it down. Like, so, like, if you're buying a 2-bed apartment, you need to save around 22 grand, you know. So I know it's a lot of money, but like I said, but if you put your head,
it's very little compared to everything else.
Yeah, like I said, put your head down and save it, and buy that property, and then move into that property. Do it up, you know what I mean? Buy a property that was an ex-rental or whatever, you buy it for less than the property that's a real, you know, show house, you know? Don't ever buy a property that's really a show house, because you're buying somebody else's taste. So when you go in, you're seeing the leather couches and the pictures and the artwork and the rugs and whatever else there. But then when you move into it, they're all gone. You're just left with the timber floor and the fixtures and fittings. So, you know, as I was saying, I've said it a million times, don't buy with your eyes, buy with your head, you know. So what I mean is visual, you know. So don't use your head, be sensible about it. Like, you know, think when you're going to look at this property, right, that's got to be gone here, but this is going to be here, so that's fine. Actually, no, that floor has to come up. It's not as nice. I'm going to have to spend money on the floor, the boiler, windows, kitchen, bathrooms. I won't buy this property. I'll buy the other property that I viewed last week. That's a better condition property. So again, you're using your head, you know, and that's what I'd always advise.
So what would be one of the reasons, because property is so in demand, housing crisis that we're in now, why would be some of the reasons that a landlord would want to sell their house? Because they could easily like rent it out, or
like there's loads of reasons they're getting out. A lot of the reasons are at the moment is there's over regulation in the rental market at the moment, so it's pro the tenant. Okay, so you could have a bad tenant in there, and it could take you months, maybe a year, to get them out. You know, so that means that tenant, that you might have a mortgage base. So let's just say you go off and buy that 1-bed apartment. You've broke your arse the next 5 years to buy that 1-bed apartment, and now you've gone off and bought your 3-bed house. You're renting out the 1-bed apartment. You move someone into the 1-bed apartment, and then they stop paying your rent, and then you can't get them out for a year. Do you think that's fair?
Obviously not. No.
Yeah, of course it's not. But
It's mad, isn't it? Like,
but because you're a landlord in the social media and the media, you're treated like whatever, you know, a leper, you know, now because, oh, a big bad landlord. But you're a normal Joe Soap. And if you look at all the properties that are owned and rented out in this country, it's something like 82% of them are owned. Sorry, 82% of the 100% are owned. Of those landlords, 82% of them either only own one property or two properties. So they're small landlords. Like, I've more than that, but other people, like I said,
they're not property investors who have loads of property.
They're just normal Joe Soap. And what happens a lot is, like, we have a huge amount of landlords that just say you and your partner get together, you know, and you have a 1-bed apartment and he has a 2-bed house, and you get to that stage in your relationship where you're kind of going, do you know what, I'm in your house 5 times a week anyway, I might as well move in with you, and then go rent out the apartment because, you know, the house is bigger, so we'll move into the apartment, you know. So, and that's what happened to a lot of people. And then you get married 2 years later or whatever, and then all of a sudden you have an investment property or whatever. Like, so, like I said, the way to look at that is, and that's what most people do, like, they're normal Joe Soap people. They're small business owners, they're guards, they're nurses, they're plumbers, they're electricians, you know. They're not Donald Trump or Dennis O'Brien type, but that's the way the media build up all these landlords, that are these big tycoons. They're not. They're normal Joe Soap people. They have a mortgage to pay, they have kids at home, they have to buy school books, they have to, you know, live life, you know, and they can't afford for the tenant not to pay the rent. Yeah, but what happens is they don't pay the rent, and then they're kind of going, oh, I can't deal with this, I'm getting out of the market. Or you have certain political parties coming out and saying that you'll have to sell the property with the tenant in situ, which basically means you have to devalue your house, because that means the value will go down. Because where most buyers are paying the most for properties are people that want to move into them themselves, not investors. So if the tenant is allowed to stay there for life in the property, that means only investors can buy that property. So let's just say you go off and get a mortgage approval tomorrow, okay, and you wanted to buy that 1-bed apartment, okay, but there was a tenant in there. The bank wouldn't give you the mortgage to buy it unless you got an investment mortgage. So they wouldn't allow you to get it. You would have to get a home buyer mortgage, and that's what you would get approval for. So there's 2 different types of mortgage, like, you know. So they wouldn't allow you to buy it. But to certain political parties, you know, we won't name them, but you can guess who, that are kind of saying this is what they want to do when they get into power. So that's why loads of landlords are selling up now, because they're kind of going, I'm gonna sell this for less money, you know. Or especially a lot of people came out of the Celtic Tiger crash, where they bought properties for 350,000 and they went down to 100,000 value, you know, and they've only just got back up again. They probably haven't even gone up to the 350,000 value, and they're just selling them because they just have a pain in their backside because they've dealt with bad tenants over years or whatever. So there's another 100 reasons why landlords are selling up, but the main thing is they don't want to get caught with a tenant, or rule changes come in, like, you know, and there is over regulation there is the main thing, like, you know. So.
Yeah, it's mad. Like, so you can't actually physically do anything if someone's in your property and they're not paying.
No. So and then, like, the problem is, if a landlord makes a mistake, you know, if a landlord came along and did something to you, you could bring him and you could get, you know, a fine in the RTB, you know, and the landlord's fined 10,000 euros or whatever, like, you know. But if you went in and trashed the house and this and that, you know, they nearly don't do anything, and it's nearly impossible for the landlord to recoup anything off the tenant. So you couldn't actually go in there and say get out, like? No. You could, and then they take a video of it, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've gone in and bullied them out and intimidated them.
Do you not have proof then that they haven't been paying?
You do, but you still have to serve them certain notices. So it's all
give them a notice.
You have to give them notice.
You've given them a notice, and they're not getting out then. Yeah,
and that's the problem. Like, so it all comes down to tenant selection. You know, we were talking about this before as well, off camera, and you're saying, how do you pick tenants and everything like that? We have to make sure that we pick the best of the best tenants. You know, I have to watch what I say here because discrimination laws and everything like this. But we have to pick the best tenants that we feel,
to make sure that they're going to have the funds,
affordability to pay the rent, and the only 2 things you want off a tenant: pay the rent on time and look after the house like it was their own. That's it, you know. And you have a happy tenancy, like, you know. And most landlords, again, 99.9% of landlords are really professional landlords, you know. you hear about these odd landlords, you know, that are, you know, you call them cowboys, you know what I mean, or they're old-fashioned landlords. There's not many of them left anymore. Like most of them are brilliant landlords. So if a washing machine breaks, they'll have someone out tomorrow to fix it, or the heating isn't working, they'll have someone out to fix it. Like a lot of people would get my company, for example, to manage the tenancy. So the landlord is hands off. So you'd ring us and say, oh, my washing machine is broken, and we'd have someone out to you in 24 hours to fix it, you know, or the heating isn't working, we'd have someone out there that night to fix it, you know. So you're paying a good rent, you expect to have a good service, and that's what people get nowadays, like, you know.
And what do you think with the housing crisis? Do you think the properties are only going to keep going up, or what's your opinion on it?
Yeah.
I remember Paul, when I had him on the podcast, he just said the interest rates will keep going up.
Yeah. So, interest rates, they're starting to come down now again. They had gone up there, but they're starting to come down now because it's all linked to inflation. So obviously inflation was really high. So you would have saw, if you went shopping, how expensive a bag of shopping was, or you would have noticed how, if you're buying materials for work, everything went up by what, 20-30% probably, you know. But now all of a sudden that's starting to come down. Now those prices aren't coming down as quickly, but interest rates are starting to come down. So they're probably going to go down. They've gone down 0.25% already. They'll probably go down another 0.25% before the end of 2024. So, and then it'll probably go down to around 3% realistically over the next year, probably slowly but surely. So, is now a good time to buy? I can't see prices falling, okay, but again, you're younger than me, but like I said, our generation, my generation, they're all thinking, oh, it's going to be the Celtic Tiger crash again, and prices now that are worth 400,000, they'll be worth 150 or 200,000 when there's a crash. That was a once in a generation crash, you know, and that was led because it was built on a deck of cards, like, as in it was all really reckless lending, like, you know, you were getting 100% mortgages, and they were lending mortgages to people there that shouldn't have been getting mortgages. And then once interest rates went up, and all of a sudden it was costing an extra couple of £100 each a month, rents weren't going up with them, and people couldn't pay back the loans, so then they defaulted, you know. And then, but what happened was they had 7 or 8 properties, and then the next fella had 7 or 8 properties, and the next fella had 7 or 8 properties. So all of a sudden you're defaulting on 6 or 7 properties, you know. So, and then obviously prices started to go down. So you had a mortgage of 300,000, and all of a sudden the value of the house was 250 or 300. So you couldn't even sell the property because you owed more to the bank. So that's not going to happen, because nowadays they've changed the central bank rules. So if you're buying a property now, the max that they'll give you is 90%. So that means you'll have 10% equity. So let's just say you buy a house for 400,000, you'll only get a max mortgage of 360,000. So if prices went down by 10%, you're covered, you know, because you only have a mortgage of 360. And more than likely it's a year or two later, so your mortgage is even lower. And more than likely the value of that house has probably gone up as well, because even if it was going up by 2 or 3% a year, at the moment they're probably going up 8 to 10% a year. So that's how quickly they're growing. Now that's going to slow down. The
prices of properties, like, do you think it's going to slow down? Do you?
They naturally have to slow down, because
they can't keep going up.
No, they can't keep going up. So it will hit a certain ceiling in some places. But the problem, and you can look at it as a good problem or a bad problem, like Ireland and especially Dublin has become more professional than it was in the Celtic Tiger years. In the Celtic Tiger years, it was all about building trades, you know, lads working as plumbers and electricians and builders and developers, and then you had a sandwich van on the site, but you had, because there was 80,000 houses being built, you had 12 sandwich vans around. So lads were sandwich van fellas selling sandwiches and breakfast rolls were millionaires because they were selling so much stuff, like it was. But then all of a sudden, once the builders went, they went, and everyone went, and that's not going to happen this time round, because, you know, you see people working from home. You know, we saw COVID. So many people, there was a lot of people affected, but there was a huge amount of people that weren't affected, because all they needed was a laptop and a mobile phone, and they could work from anywhere. And we've seen that we're remote working. Also, as well, with Brexit, a lot of the UK firms have come over to Dublin as well. So there's a lot of professional people working out of Dublin, and incomes have gone up. And just what happens in a boom, incomes go up, and I can't see prices collapsing. If there will be a recession, there's always a recession, but I can't see them collapsing. So I would think as soon as you have a deposit ready, I'd buy the property, you know? Yeah,
I feel like I don't see the price dropping in anyways, because I feel like it's if there's more of demand of a property, and it's going to keep increasing because of the population. Like.
But pure population, like I think the ERSI came out and said there's going to be an extra 1 million people living in the country by 2030. Like, you know, so where are they going to live?
Yeah.
You know, so obviously they need to be housed. You know, so if you own a property, you'd like to think that property is going to go up in value. So you have to think that property is going to go up in value. You know, you'd be mad to think that property won't go up in value, and you'd be mad to think that rents won't continue to rise as well. So
yeah,
because again, as you said earlier on, landlords leaving the market. There's more landlords leaving the market than new landlords are coming into the market.
Really?
Yeah. So that means supply and demand. So that means
why, and that's the reasons why. Because people are just
well, taxation is a huge thing as well. So if you bought the property in your name, you know, so let's just say you earn 50,000 a year out of your job, and then you rent the property out and you're getting $2,000 a month, call it 24 grand. That means you're taxed at 74,000. You know, so it goes down. It goes onto your income. So that's why a lot of people would buy.
There's ways around that, though.
Well,
isn't there?
Well, obviously, if you're doing a property, there is not. But like I said, but you can buy it through a company, you pay less tax, or if you buy it through a pension fund, you pay zero tax.
Yeah.
Only when you take it out. But like I said, so that's why a lot of people don't do it that way. But it's people are getting crucified on tax. So again, landlords are just hemorrhaging out of the market now. So it's massive, like, you know. So like I said, so that's what I'm saying to you. It is so important now to sacrifice. You can bitch and moan all you want, say, oh, the market and the government and this.
I feel like there's a lot of people around my age who are just like thinking that it's just gonna drop and wait on it. Like, how long are you gonna wait?
But if you look at people that you said whatever average wage is 35 grand or 40,000, right? So that means they're making $3,000 a month, let's just say, right? And most of them are living at home with mum and dad. So are you going to tell me if you're earning $3,000 a month that you couldn't save 1,200 of that and still have a good lifestyle?
Yeah, see, to everyone else, the expectancy or like what they're looking at, and everyone wants this extravagant life.
They're driving the nice cars, they have the watches, they have the jewellery, they have the clothes, they have their sandwiches, they have to go out on Saturday and Sunday, they're getting taxis left, right and centre. You know what I mean? So you cut back on that and you save your money, and that's what I'm saying. First thing we said in the podcast is sacrifice. You sacrifice now, you will benefit this. I know in your 40s looks like it's miles away, but that's what you have to look at. Like, you know, like
you don't want to be old still having to work all mad hours and not being able to spend time with your kids.
Yeah, myself, my wife have. You know, we have a great lifestyle now, and we worked our arses off there in our 20s and 30s and had a couple of young kids and whatever else, and we still worked our arses off, and we sacrificed. And look, when you have kids, you don't be spending that much money anyway, because you're just, you know, you're like a zombie there for a couple of years with a lack of sleep and whatever else. But we just stayed in that habit, you know, like we stayed in this habit. We were saving for our wedding, and then we continued saving, and then we went off and bought a property, and you know, and continued on from there and bought another property, and you know, and then we're in a fabulous house now, like, you know. But because we made those sacrifices now, and now at that stage, you know, we're at a stage of our life that we keep saving. We're still saving, you know. And we're not really saving for anything, but we're still saving. And we're earning good money now as well, like I said, with our businesses and with our portfolios and stuff like that. But now we can go off on a holiday now and not worry about it, like, you know. We can go off and that's what we, like, enjoy spending our money on, is holidays and that type of thing, like, you know.
And when you say saving, then you hear people say, like, don't have your money sitting there dead in the bank because it's going to decrease in value. When you save, is that in like investing, or because obviously you have a wealth management company, is it?
Yeah.
So obviously, would you like invest your money?
Yeah, so I do, but I love property. So like I said, I put it into my pension fund, but we'd also save for a rainy day. So we'd probably save around 20% of our wages. So
yeah,
we still do that, you know, 20. We're
probably putting it directly in the bank, like
we put it into the bank, and then that pays up for our holidays, or that pays for bits and pieces, or if we have to go off and buy a property, you know, we go off and have money there to go out and buy a property, because a property might come up tomorrow, and you're like, oh, I have to run around and try to get, you know, 30 or 40 or 50 grand saved. But at least if you have money saved there, you can go off and make these things. So it's better to be looking at the money than not looking at it. So we have it spread out, you know. So we'd have it in a couple of investments, we have it in a good bit of our property, and we reinvest it. We'll buy another property. So if you've money there, we don't have it sitting there. You go off and buy another property and have more rental return coming in. Like, the way to look at this, right, is the goal is to buy a couple of investment properties, right? And the way to look at this is if you buy that 1-bed apartment, right, and you, let's call it, you buy it for 220,000, right, and you put down 22 grand of a deposit on it. So let's call it you have a 200 grand mortgage, right, and you live in it for a year, and then you go off and buy another property. So let's call it you have a mortgage of 190,000. You then rent that property out. You never have to put any money towards that property again because the tenant
Just paying for the mortgage.
is going to pay for the mortgage. So you tell me another investment that you just need to put down 22 grand and that you'll have more than likely an investment worth 300,000 by the time you're 60. You know, because obviously prices are going to go up. So, or even if it's only just worth 220,000 again, but you've only put down 22,000. And then, yeah, that's the secret to own a property. You have the tenant building your wealth. So get the tenant to pay off the mortgage for you. Get the tenant to start having cash flow coming into your bank account. And that's it, you know. So, and that's the secret.
So you don't actually, as you're saying, there, like everyone's probably looking somewhere in Dublin, getting somewhere even smaller outside.
I wouldn't go outside of Dublin.
Not full on outside. I mean,
like your Naces or Kilcox or that kind of stuff. Because if you go too far out and then there is a recession, rents collapse, and then everyone moves back up to Dublin because that's where all the big jobs are. So try to buy in Dublin because that's where the best investment will be. Now, look, if you're living in Cork watching this, you know, buy in Cork. Cork's a good investment as well, or buy in Galway City, or buy in, you know, Limerick, somewhere where there's loads of employment, you know. But the rents are crazy money now. They're not always going to be crazy money. They'll always be crazy money in Dublin because that's where the main jobs are always going to be. That's where the main employers are always going to be. That's where the biggest, you know, the biggest and best companies are always going to pay the biggest and best salaries there. You know, they're not going to pay them down in Limerick or Leitrim or Waterford. You know.
Yeah.
So
but I feel like that's what we were saying earlier on, with Brexit and everyone just coming in. I don't see anything dropping. It's not.
They don't. But the thing is, like, get your head around it and just save your money. Like,
yeah, no, enough to get a mortgage. I mean, the rents.
Yeah, the rents aren't going to go down. Like I said, and even if they do go down, they might only go down 10%. So if you look at a 2-bed apartment now is $2,000 a month along the M50. That's not even city centre, is more, you know.
That's a good $2,000 a month. That's
what I'm saying.
Cheap.
But that's what I'm saying. So if you call along the M50 or outside the M50, you know, so in your Dublin 15s, your Dublin 24s, your Dublin 22s, you know, that type of. But once you go inside the M50, as in you're going in towards town, those rents jump up there. But even if you said that, $2,000 a month, you know, so it doesn't make sense to be, you know. And there's so many people out there saying, "Oh, you have so much more freedom when you rent a property and you have this and you have that." I don't want to own a property.
Why would you not want to own a property?
I hear
who said that to you?
I hear these people on social media saying it the whole time, and I'm just biting my lip, kind of going, "You're an idiot," you know. So, I have so much more freedom, and I don't need to do this, and you're kind of going,
that's just someone, you know,
stupid.
That's just someone trying to not big themselves up, but like make themselves look better to somebody else.
Yeah.
Online, that's all that is.
And that's all.
Why
like the thing is, like I said, you own a property, and it's like a savings plan, like, you know, because you're paying off a mortgage, and that mortgage is going down. So the value, even if that value, if you bought that 1-bed apartment, that just even didn't go up in value, it just stayed at 220. Every year, if you're paying off, your mortgage wouldn't be $2,000. It might be 1,000 or 1,200. Let's call it you're paying off 15 grand a year. That 15 grand, obviously you're paying interest and whatever, but that eventually is coming down, and you'll have that paid off in 20 years time or 30 years time. Whereas if you're paying a rent, you're paying 24 grand. Well, for a 1-bed apartment, you're paying 1,600 quid. So you're paying 1,600 quid a month for what? You know, and a landlord can come in and evict you tomorrow. So you might have to be settled in the area. So it makes always sense to buy that property and have it as an investment. Or you can always sell it down the line and you have savings there, or you're building up savings there as well. And more than likely, the value of that asset is going to go up as well. So even if it goes up by 10%, 20%, you've made 20 grand on it, plus whatever you've paid off already. So it's a savings plan on its own, and it's a sensible thing to do.
And with again, going back to the wealth management company that you have.
Well, it's a mortgage. It's more of a mortgage kind of company than wealth management, yeah.
Right,
so,
okay. So what would, for someone looking to get a mortgage, what would be the things the bank is looking for? Or you'll be...
They're looking for repayment capacity, you know. Right. So what that basically means is, you know, your mortgage is 1,500 quid a month. Let's just say you're getting, you qualify yourself and your partner around 50 grand each. That means it's 100 grand. So the max that you can get is 400k. So they'll look to see, first of all, can you pay back that loan of 360,000? Because you have to put down 10%. So that means you have 360 grand of a mortgage. So can you pay back that 360,000 over 30 years? You know, so let's just call that 1,500 euros a month. They'll want to see there that you have been saving maybe 18 or 1,900, because they're going to stress test you over that amount, because in case interest rates go up. So they're not just going to see that you can save 1,500, they're going to see if you can save 18 or 1,900 to see that you can live. They're also going to check to see, you know, that you're not overdrawn every month. They're going to check to see there that you don't have a gambling problem. They're going to look at your lifestyle and see if you can afford to pay it, you know. So this is why it goes back to you saving money and just getting into that habit that you save 20%, minimum 20% every month, you know, and that goes into your property fund, you know. And that's not like I'm going on holidays now, or it's Christmas, or I have to buy, geez, me fella, a birthday present. That's not that fund. You have to save something different. But that's what you have to do, and build up that fund. And once you get into that habit, and then as you start earning more money, you start keep putting 20% or maybe 25% away, all of a sudden you have money there that once a property comes up, you're able to go for it. And you'll see that instead of you trying to look for money and beg, borrow and steal that money, it's hard, you know. Very hard to raise 5 grand or 10 grand, you know, if you don't have it, like, you know. So that's what I'd always advise, you know. And
how long would they be, like, obviously you said bank statements and stuff like that, how far back would they be looking for?
I'll just say you're an employee, you know, they're going to look back a couple of months statements there, you know. So, but you have to make sure there that you don't have a bad credit history. So if you get
what did you say, a couple of months, did you?
Yeah, normally look back a couple of months. If you're obviously self-employed, they'll want to get a couple of years bank, a couple of years accounts, so 2 years. But like I said,
it's mad, isn't it, how they look at that as high risk more than someone who could easily just get sacked in a few weeks.
Yeah, but they look at you because, again, you're the bread earner, you know. If you own that business, they want to make sure that you have money there, you have business coming in, what type of industry you're in, is there a recession coming, is that business, you know, is that, so like back in 2010, 2011, like the banks wouldn't lend to the likes of us because we're in the property industry. They wouldn't give you €5, you know what I mean? Like, so now they're throwing money at you, but there's another recession, they won't give you any money. So like I said, if you're looking for it, so the banks will look at to see what industry you're in, and then they want to make sure, first of all, the main thing is repayment capacity. Can you repay that loan? So if you're in renting the property and you're paying £2,000 a month back, they'll look at that and say, hold on, for the last 3 years or last 12 months, they are paying £2,000 a month and they're able to do that. Or they have a direct debit going out there for their electricity bill or this or that or whatever, you know. So, or they're paying, they can see that you're paying your Sky TV or whatever it is, like, you know. So they want to see all of that stuff. So don't be paying stuff through cash or anything like that. Have money in your account and transactions going through, and that will help you, like, you know. And
then you're going back to literally what you just said there. So you mentioned if someone is renting somewhere and then obviously they're paying, like, say nowadays I'm seeing apartments for $2,500.
Yeah.
So say they're paying $2,500, would they look at that as, obviously you have your deposit saved up, would they look at that as your savings and say, right, okay, so would they look at that?
So this is why it's important that you don't go into a bank on its own. You go in and use a mortgage broker, right? So the difference between dealing with a bank and a broker is, so if you walked into, not to pick any bank, so let's say AIB, Bank of Ireland, Permanent TSB, one of these banks, if you just walked into one of those banks, they can only offer you Bank of Ireland products or AIB products, right? So they're only going to offer you one product. Whereas if you go into a mortgage broker, they're dealing with all of those banks. They're dealing with 5 or 6 banks. So they can offer you what all of those banks will offer you, and turn around and say, oh, this bank are offering you this, they're giving you the best deal, or this bank are giving you cash back, or this bank or this, and they give you options. And that's what you need to do, okay, when you do go for a mortgage, is go to a broker and go in that route, you know, that to make sure that you're getting the best deal on it, you know, because a lot of people that come into us and they're 3 or 4 years into the mortgage, and coincidentally they're talking to us about something, and we go and remortgage because they're overpaying for the mortgage. Like, so you want to make sure that you're getting the best deal.
What do you mean they go and remortgage? Like?
So let's just say you got a mortgage out with X bank, you're going to pay a rate of 4% or whatever it is, you know, where another bank might offer you 3.8 or 3.9. You know, so
what, you can just switch?
You can switch. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, I didn't know that.
You can do a switch your mortgage and switch over to a different bank. Yeah, so like I
Right,
said,
okay.
so I get a better rate, you know. So, or they might give you a better fixed rate or whatever like that there as well.
And say if someone did get a mortgage with you and you seen a bank that done a lower, would you just ring someone up that,
Yeah, yeah.
and you were like,
So
here, look.
it's quite common there that they'd come in and X bank are offering you this now, and then you say, okay, I have loan approval there, and then you go out looking to buy a property and you're bidding on properties and this and that, and it could be 2 or 3 months later, and you say, okay, I'm about to go sale agreed on a property, and then they come back and say, actually, Y bank are giving a better deal now for you now. I can get you more money, or I can get a better rate for you here. So we're going to switch you over to this bank now and get your loan approval here. So that's the difference. We're using a broker and going directly to a bank. You know, the broker is working for you, where the fella in the bank or the person in the bank is working for the bank. You know, so that's the difference.
Yeah. So, and then say if someone was to, obviously someone went and got the property, went sale agreed, what's all the fees and everything else that someone will be paying?
Yeah, so obviously you need your 10% deposit. You're going to need to pay solicitors' fees. So solicitors' fees could be anywhere from probably €1,000 up to 1% of the purchase price. So if you buy a property for 400,000, they could charge you up to €4,000. It's normally between those fees, 1,000 up to 4,000 plus VAT and whatever else. So you'd probably need the average solicitor fee is around 2.5-3 grand. You have to pay stamp duty on the property. That's a tax to the government. That's again 1%. So that's another, let's call it, on your 400 grand property, that's going to be 4 grand. And then you need to get a valuer to go out and value the property. Okay, so like we're a valuer, but if you're buying off Ray Cooke valuer couldn't obviously value your property. You need to get an independent valuer. So they would go out and they'd be the eyes and the ears for the bank to make sure that it's worth 400,000 that you're paying for it. And then you have to get a survey on the property as well to make sure. So the survey is to make sure that it's structurally sound. You know, the roof isn't going to fall off in a strong wind, as we say. To make sure that they come back and tell you the heating isn't working here, or there's a leak in the back, or the extension was built wrong. So that's the best money. It might cost you 400 or 500 quid to get that done, but that's the best money that you can spend, because that 400 quid gives you peace of mind to know that you're buying a good property. Or they come back and say, actually, no, you need, this is going to cost 10 grand, go back and look for 10 grand off,
So what happens then with all the derelict properties? Say if you were to go and buy one of them, you wouldn't be able to get a mortgage on that.
It depends on the bank. See, this is why, again, you use a broker, because each bank is different with their criteria of what they lend on. Okay, so one bank might lend on that derelict house, and then the next bank mightn't. So it all depends. Each bank is different. So, but there is different grants and stuff like that there that they've come out with, the derelict grants and all that kind of stuff to do with properties and stuff like that. So
what's that again? 70% is it? Or
I'm not too sure now, but it's great money. Like, as in compared to, it wasn't there a year or two ago. Like, so it is that incentive to go in and buy one of these houses there that's in bits. Or like, I think a derelict property is now someone that hasn't lived in a property for 2 years or 3 years now.
2 years. Yeah.
So like, it mightn't be derelict. Like, it might be just an old deer died, or she went into a nursing home and no one lived there for 2 years, and all of a sudden it's only 2 years later they're doing the probate, and the house has been left to whoever in the family and they're selling, and all of a sudden it's 4 years on and no one's lived in the house, and obviously the house is in bits, the back garden is up to your shoulder with grass or whatever, but that's grand. Go in and reconnect the electricity and gas and do whatever, like they're the houses to buy. Like, as in, I always laugh when people buy the really nice houses. Like, go off and buy the ones that are doer-uppers, like, because you're going to go in and change everything anyway. Like, you might as well buy the ones there that need a little bit of work.
You get it for cheaper, yeah.
Yeah, and you get it cheaper. You're getting it cheaper, like,
And plus the grant as well.
And the grant and everything else there, if you can get that grant as well. And there's loads of other grants as well to up the BER on it, the energy rating on it, and loads of different things like that as well. So there's loads of kind of different grants out there. So if you're cute enough, you could save a few pound there, like, as well.
Yeah, so for anyone listening the BER?
The BER is the energy rating on the house. So you could get grants to replace the boiler or put insulation in the property. Because a lot of the older properties that were built from the 80s, 70s, 60s backwards, they don't have insulation in the houses, like, you know, so the insulation would be in the walls or would be in the floor or in the roof, okay, and those houses weren't built with insulation because they weren't the property standards back there. So you'd ever go into your mum's house or your granny's house, like, you know, freezing. And you're like, Jesus, it's freezing in here, it's warmer outside, because they don't have insulation. Now they have big thick walls and they'd have whatever. So a lot of the houses that, you know, your listeners would be local authority houses, you know, a lot of them in Dublin 12 and Dublin 10 and across there, Finglas and Dublin 11 and Dublin 9. So the local authority houses, a lot of them were built in the 50s and 60s, like, you know, and they're fine houses, they're all great houses, but there's just no insulation in them. So you would see a new couple going in and buying them, and the first thing that they're doing is pulling up floorboards and putting insulation underneath and insulating the walls and putting insulation into the attic. And then obviously what they're doing then as well is obviously they're upgrading boilers and they're putting double glazed windows in or a composite front door or back door as well. And straight away the BER jumps up from an F or, you know, an E to a C or a B, and it's like all of a sudden you're walking around in shorts and a t-shirt instead of walking around in big hoodies and blankets on you, like, you know. So it's a massive difference, like.
Yeah.
And there's loads of grants for these type of things as well, like, so you can look it up there. Like I said, if you Google just grants for insulation or whatever, like, or BER grants, like I said, there's loads of them there that you can look at there as well. So depending on what your property needs. And
what's your opinion about all the? There's obviously a lot of derelict houses, but there's ones that, like, the Dublin City Council own and they just don't want to do anything with them.
No.
What's the story with that?
They own them. It's so frustrating, isn't it? Like, and
like
you see them boarded up for ages.
There, yeah.
So I remember talking to someone about it, a councillor, a couple of years ago, and I was just giving out, and I was going to say, you're in the middle of a housing crisis, and you have probably hundreds of properties across Dublin, if not more, that are boarded up or not in use or whatever. And a lot of the time it could be because of antisocial behaviour or the previous tenant that was living in it, and there was a threat, you know, or someone was going to do something to the house or people with them in it. So they have it boarded up for a certain period of time, and then they'll go back in again. They don't want to go back in and do the property up and then someone goes in and trashes it, like, you know. So they want to make sure someone says, right, they're going to get that house. Now, like any local authorities and like any county councils, they could be a lot more efficient, you know. If that was privatised now, all those houses would be in use, you know. So, but because it's the county council, they go at their own pace, like, you know. So yeah,
there's so many.
It's a disgrace, really, isn't it?
There's a couple of roads where, like, I'd actually know people living on them, and there would have been nothing even happened in them houses, and they're just boarded up.
And a lot of the time, there isn't antisocial stuff there that's going on with the previous people living in them. It's just they had the council house, and all of a sudden things have improved for them that they can afford to go off and buy a bigger house themselves or into a new area themselves, and they go off and get a private mortgage or whatever, and then they leave the council house. But then instead of just moving a new family in there, they board it up, and it's nearly forgotten about, you know. And you're
so the house, there would have been nothing even wrong with the house. They just decided to board it up.
Well, yeah, because it might be in a certain area, they have to kind of board it up, like, you know. So, like I said, yeah. So, and again, you wonder why these houses aren't just turned around straight away with all these people on the housing list, like, you know. So, but like these houses, I suppose, have to be, I suppose, in a certain defence of the local authority, these houses have to be at a certain level, you know. They have to be pristine when they hand them over. So obviously they don't.
But like, say to someone who say has the money and is looking to buy it, and they will redo it and they'll put their money into it.
They won't. The council will do it and then hand it over. Yeah, the people won't do it. They won't give it to the, you know, because they won't do it to their standard. Like, so again, the electrics and the plumbing have to be up to
what
scratch.
If they proved it? I don't
know, but like I said,
you probably I had this argument with them,
each property is different, like, you know. So one property might need a new kitchen, another property might need a bathroom, another property needs to have a tree cut down in the back garden, or this or that or that or that, and they obviously don't have the maintenance teams to obviously do them, like, or turn them around as quickly. But it's an absolute waste. Like, I'd say easily there's a couple of hundred properties there that they could turn around and put into the housing list tomorrow, you know.
In Athlone there last weekend, and I think I was in just literally like an area, and on every single road there was about 5 houses boarded up. Like, it was like, and the fellow that we were with, like, he was from there, and he like, he's had property there for so many years, and that's why he was just like, I don't, like, there's no reason for them to.
And is antisocial behaviour in the area, or
it is a bit of some of the roads are a bit dodgy, but he's had so much property in there, he's around that area, that he was just like, most of these houses are fine.
Yeah, isn't it mad?
It's just
isn't it?
really, it is really
But
just
again,
there,
we're just saying about Dublin, but I'd say if you went into every village or town in Ireland, you have the same thing, where there's probably thousands of properties there owned, you know, and it's just it's a shame because, like I said, if you sat in our office and you saw the amount of people that ring into our office on a daily basis or come into our office on a daily basis, and you really, really feel sorry for them. And they can't afford the rents that are being charged at the moment, or it could be a single parent with a couple of kids, or it could be just someone that's after coming out of a separation or a divorce, or there's loads of different things, like, you know, and they should be able to get a council house. Like, it used to be back in the 50s and 60s that if you worked, you got a council house. You know what I mean? Like, so that if you went off and you worked, you got a council house, you know, and they need to kind of go back to doing that. You know what I mean? Like,
So what, back in the day was only if you had a job you got the council house?
50s and 60s, yeah. So like
Why
I said,
is that not the case now? Because people are just, half of the time I'm like, I'd be messing with other people saying, oh, I think I'm just going to pack it in, have a load of kids, get a free house.
Yeah.
And get all the money back off all the taxes that I'm paying.
It was a classic. I remember years ago, and it was probably 2009, 2010, and we were sitting in my tele office, and like, it was in the middle of the recession. Like, there was nothing happening, there was no money, and we were sitting in there with a couple of the lads, and there was a girl came in from the tele area, and it was her grandmother. Sorry, it was a great grandmother, her grandmother, her mother, and her, right? And she was probably 19 or 20, right? Had 2 kids, right? And the great grandmother, I don't know what age she was, in her 70s, right? And lovely people now, you know, salt of the earth. But like, they wanted the daughter to get the house on the road because the other 3 of them were on the road, and they wanted us to rent a house to her because all of them lived on the one road and wanted her to be on that road as well. And we were like, but sure, she's 19, 20 or whatever age she was, and da. But she had 2 kids. She was probably getting around $2,500 a month, like, you know what I mean? And back then, like, we were scraping by, like, we had no money. But back then, that's the problem. There's so many.
Off the government, like, they just handed that over.
Yeah. Like I said, you saw it there for years there, that you'd always see at the bus stops all the buggies at the bus stops, you know, because they were getting all the free buggies. They'd say, oh, my buggy was robbed or whatever, and they weren't allowed buggies to put on the buses. So they used to leave all the buggies at the bus stops and just carry their kids in, and they'd go down to their office and get another buggy, like, you know. So like I said, that's what the government have built, you know. So unfortunately, you know, like, why can't a 19 or 20-year-old or 21-year-old go out and work, you know, get a job at McDonald's, you know, get a job anywhere? Like, everyone was looking for employees at the moment, like, go out, and they don't want to work.
Yeah,
you know?
sure. There's people that basically, if they're working, they're going to get the more free money taken off them, or it's not going to be worth their while. They're actually going to have less money if they're working all the time, spend less time with their kids.
Yeah. But again, HAP has changed that. You know, like, HAP, you can earn up to, I think, 50,000 as a single person. I think you can earn up to 80 or 90,000 as a couple, and still be, now obviously the more you earn, the more you pay, but I think the max you pay is like 10 or 15% of the rent, you know. Everything else is paid for you. So you could be getting a rent of 2,300, 2,400 and only paying 10 or 15% of it, you know. Like, if you think of it, like, and you're getting a whopper of a house, like, you know, and you're still on the housing list, like, so, and the government are paying everything for you. Whereas back in the day, once you worked over 18 or 20 hours, then you lost all your benefits. Like, it's not like that anymore, as far as I know, anyway. So they have changed that around. But look, you're always going to have we're always going to have probably 5 or 6% unemployed, you know, in every country. Because
I'd say that percentage has gone up. Yeah,
because 4% of those people are just won't ever work. And then there's obviously the 2% of people that are carers or this or that, and they are working because they're obviously looking after someone at home and whatever else. They're starting to get money, I think, now, but there is always going to be those people that just don't work, you know, and they're the ones that are giving out and, you know, marching and causing all this crap, you know. So
no, I'm going to get into that.
No, that's a topic for another day though, you know. We're trying to be positive here, you know, so.
Yeah. But yeah, that's literally exactly how I feel about that whole situation. But there's so controversy around that.
It's unreal, isn't it? Like, you know, and they're bringing down, you know, you saw the crap in Coolock and you saw all these
I'm
other
literally
places,
around the
like,
corner from there.
Yeah, like, and I know so many people in Coolock and they're just disgusted because everyone in the country now thinks that's all Coolock people. You're kind of going, that's not Coolock people at all. That's people that aren't even from Coolock that are coming into Coolock to do that. Like, you know what I mean? So, but look, it's that's a topic for another day. I don't want to start talking about that. Now, but, like,
of course not.
geez, it'll be a different podcast with that if we start there now. Like, you know.
But yeah, I'd say how old did you say your kids were?
8 and 10. Yeah, so
yeah, I'd say it's good to grow up around that, obviously, because you are doing so well and you are in business, and they're probably obviously going to be seeing what you are doing, and
yeah.
Because
like we I didn't come from, me and my wife or I didn't come from business parents, like, you know, they came from normal Joe So parents, and don't get me wrong, like my parents were the best in the world. They instilled confidence in us, and I have 2 older brothers, and, you know, great sense of humor, and, you know, if you did anything you were absolutely slated in my family, like, you know, so it was good. But they always believed in you, that you could go off, and, you know, and gave me that confidence that I could do anything. And like, I made a million mistakes, you know, but they always had your back. And look, if I can do that for my kids, you'll be all right. Like, and that's all you want for your kids, isn't it? Just to be happy and to do something that you love, you know what I mean? So obviously, look, they're still young, but you're going to try to teach them as you go, like, you know. And they're in working. My wife works in the business as well, so they're in with my wife there all week there now as well, like, you know. So because we're busy
over
at the moment, yeah. So they're in every day doing a few bits and pieces, and they learn the work environment, like, you know. They love it already, like, you know. So yeah. I had my son there, like, handing out. We do air fresheners, like, you know, for cars, like, you know. I had them down handing out to all the schoolmates in school there during the year and everything like that as well. So he handed out, I think, I don't know, 100 of them, like, you know. Fair play to him, like, so he has the sales gene in him already there, like, fair play to him, like, you know. So
yeah, so if anyone is looking to sell their property,
yeah, contact Ray Cooke, like I said. So sell or rent their property, or if you're a first time buyer as well, and you're just looking to get mortgage approval or just get up on the ladder, you can contact us through all of our main things, social media. So you have, obviously, if contact me, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, Ray Cooke, but just Ray Cooke Auctioneers, which is the sales side. We upload all of our properties there.
Probably shouldn't have said that there.
Ray Cooke Financial Services, yeah. So like I said, Ray Cooke Financial Services as well, the mortgage. So you can send the work ones into DMs there, and look, my team will get back to you as well. Someone in the team can get back to you as well if you have any questions as well. Ray Cooke Lettings as well for the lettings page as well, like, you know. So
thanks so much for coming on, Ray.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.